Welcome back to another episode of the Bear Trap, a Bears podcast by a Bears fan. I'm your host, Terry, and today doing a division watch for the NFC North. Just going to be doing a little check-in on how the division's doing. Before we get started, I do want to say this to Bears fans. Let me take a moment to say this. All you people crying about Matt Nagy and the play calling. Look, I definitely agree. There's improvement. Matt Nagy's not a perfect play caller. As I said, coming in when he was hired, the man only called plays for a short amount of time. However, I take issue with this complaint, whether it's Nagy or anybody else, because the fact of the matter is you don't know what he's calling. And the vast majority, you don't even know what the play is. And so if you're talking about situational play calling or run pass ratio, that's more of a conversation I can understand. But a lot of you talking about, oh, terrible play. You don't know what the play was. And you don't know what the defense was. You don't know what the stats telling them that they should call on this down and this distance and what the Packers or the Broncos like to run. You don't even know what the play is. All you see is where Trubisky ends up going, if it's a pass or, if it's a run, if it went somewhere or not. And so you don't know the blocking schemes, you don't know the fronts, you don't know the coverages, you don't know the routes. Most of you just are out there talking, which is why I always will push back against this terrible play calling whole conversation. Anyway, with that being said, let's get into the division. So 2 weeks into it, nice little time to reflect and see what's going on. So as far as the overall standings, it goes Packers at number 1 at 2-0. Lions are number 2, 1 win, 1 tie. Vikings are 1-1 at number 3, and we, the Chicago Bears, are number 4 at 1-1 because we have not won in conference. We beat the Broncos, which is in the AFC, of course. Vikings have a conference win, and so they would technically be ahead of us right now. So that's kind of how the standings shake out. So I'm going to go each team real quick, and then I'm going to kind of wrap up with some stats. Usually I start with the stats, but there's a lot of stats to break down. So anyway, let's start with the Green Bay Packers. So of course, played them in the home opener, 10-3, very low scoring affair. We saw that when the chips is down, Aaron Rodgers still can play football. And then, of course, he showed that in week 2 as well. But we also showed that our defense is still here to play. Even with some of the changes, the Bears defense still did a pretty good job. As far as the defense of the Packers, we've seen that they're not fully gelled, but they are one heck of a different unit than they used to be. And so kind of talking about players that stick out to me, it would be Jair Alexander. The dude is a legit number 1 corner. And corners is always tough because a lot of them have athleticism, but you got to see him put it together. And when he's healthy, so far this year, he has looked outstanding in both games. So giving somebody a corner that can really shut down the number 1 or at least make it a tough day for him is going to be big. And then the other standout is Devontae Adams. The numbers weren't a joke last year or the previous years. The man might be one of the best route runners under OBJ. And it's just when he gets in open space in that slot, it's a real tough ask for anybody to cover him. So I think overall what we're seeing with the Packers is that the defense is up to par enough where they can help the offense contend. It's just really a question of their focus and their ability to win under a young head coach. You see teams around the league, young teams around the league, even the Packers in week 2 where they got to a nice lead and it was kind of cruise control, and then, you almost had the wheels fall off. So just having that winning instinct is kind of hard with a young, new coach. Detroit Lions, 1 win, 1 tie. I didn't get to catch a lot of the Arizona game. I caught a lot of the Chargers game, and I like to watch the division games whenever they're on. So We'll dive into the numbers a little bit later, but right now the Lions are kind of living on living on offense right now. In their offense, I think they're putting up numbers. I wouldn't say they're super prolific though. Just watching Stafford and those guys, it was a lot of drives where they came up empty or they kind of sputtered. So it was a 13-10 game against the Chargers, which has a significantly better defense than the Cardinals, but they still kind of lived, on offense. And the Chargers, I have to admit, they did a good job on them, especially after seeing what Kyler Murray was able to do to that defense. And even looking at the statistical rankings so far, you didn't expect Detroit to do a whole lot on defense against the Chargers that has so many weapons. But they really stood up, and so it'll be interesting to see if they're kind of a home team when it comes to the defense, and then also just kind of if they can carry that momentum. But right now, I would guess Detroit's a team that's going to still give up points, even with big play Slay and a lot of good weapons. I still think that's more of an offensive team than anything. The Vikings. You had a very impressive win. And again, that was another one where they kind of let the gas off the pedal, but a still impressive win against the Falcons, who are pretty much intact from the Super Bowl run. Not everybody's there, but there's a lot of pieces there. And to be able to do that to Matt Ryan and Julio now, to really shut them out early in that game. We know the Vikings defense has been impressive, and they showed another strong outing. And then the offense really didn't have to do much to sustain that win. And then you get to last week where Kirk Cousins got a little bit more exposed. And, it's kind of a bittersweet thing where he really did look bad in the first half. And then the second half, he started to orchestrate a little bit of a comeback. And really, at the end of the day, you got Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen. Even though Diggs didn't have a great game, a couple drops, you had Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs, probably one of the best 1-2 punches at receiver. And so Kirk Cousins, I still think, has shown he's not the guy. But when he's called upon, he's got great weapons. So I still they're a zone running team. And I'll get to the offenses in a little bit. And so that's going to be their bread and butter. It all got kick-started with Dalvin Cook busting off a 70-plus yard run. And that's the type of home run threat that they'll be looking for from him and really from their offense, which, it's kind of sad because they do have the weapons, especially with Irv Smith, to be a spread-out team. But, Kirk Cousins and those guys and Kubiak, they want to run, and play action. And so more so in the defense is where we're worried about. And Danielle Hunter, I was shocked that he was kind of put in check against the Packers. And I'll talk about that in a little bit of kind of why that happened. But I still think he's a big-time threat. But really, Harrison Smith is the one that I come away like, wow, we know he's an all-pro and he's a pro bowler, but he still looks really good. He's not super old or anything, and I still think open field, great tackler, and can make things difficult for our offense. So still one of their standout guys as well. So that's kind of the three teams so far, what they've been doing. And one of the things I noticed is that all the offenses in this division are kind of operating the same, and the fact that it's under center, hand the ball off to play action type offense. And so that's different because the Packers were never like that with Mike McCarthy. And so what you see now, surprisingly, I would say with LaFleur, is that they're under center a lot more. And they said they were going to be, and they really have done it. And I'm seeing that more throughout the league, but in our division, it's really all three teams. Now, all three don't run the exact same offense, but that look is what we're going to see. It's an under center with multiple sets, bunches, doubles, trips, all those different things. So we can get some misdirection there. But also it's the sleight of hand. That's why under center was the thing for such a long time and not shotgun, because you really did have some deception with it. Now, when you're down 28-0 in the fourth quarter, it's not going to mean much. But early in the game, when that quarterback's turning the shoulder, the ball is hidden. And so you really don't know if it's a handoff, it's a play action, if it's going to be a draw, if it's going to be a 3-step quick thing, if it's going to be a 7-step, longer pass. And that has worked to the advantage of some of the offenses in our division, especially when you talk about Danielle Hunter, as I mentioned. Even though he's going against Bakhtiari, who's a good or all-pro tackle, you got to wonder why he wasn't getting more pressure. But you got to understand, you can't pin your ears back and, fly off the edge against a team like that, especially if you consistently handing the ball off and getting good yardage, because now you got to be able to play your run fit and you can't just fly up the field to the quarterback. So you saw that with the Packers. You definitely see that with the Vikings. As I said, Gary Kubiak's an outside zone team. Now, that's different. They will turn around and hand it off in different ways, but they want to move laterally. They got Bradbury out of NC State. They want to move laterally. They want to get the offense or the defense flowing so they can cut, and you have Dalvin Cook that can make you pay for that. And then they want to play action boot off of that, a lot like what you kind of saw the Falcons do in their Super Bowl run. And so they're just setting up, that boot action off that, even though Kirk Cousins isn't the fastest. But again, they really want to run the ball, and then they want to take big shots down the field with Thielen and Diggs off of that. And then you got Detroit Lions, who's more of a power run. They want to turn around, hand off. Now, they will go shotgun and, a lot more than other teams have. But they still want to get under the gun or under the center, and they want to turn around, hand that ball off to Kerryon Johnson and the other guys, and they want to kind of pound you down into submission. Now, they work a lot more quick game off of their under center stuff, so it's not really play action shots that they're looking for necessarily. They will go quick slants, quick outs, some of those West Coast concepts, but really it's a ball control offense. So 3 different styles, but 3 similar looks that we'll be seeing offensively. And then defensively, kind of what we've seen before. I need to see more of the Lions, especially with some of their guys healthy, and to kind of really see what Patricia wants to do with them. But the Vikings is kind of what we've known. They're not too different than us. They want to rush forward. They're not going to blitz a whole lot. They'll bring the safety down, but they're so injured right now, in the secondary, that it's kind of hard to see what they want to do coverage-wise. But for the most part, they're going to let those linebackers, Barr and Kendricks, play behind that 4 line, that they rotate. They're going to let Danielle Hunter fly off the edge and Everson Griffin. And they really are just going to play everything in front of them, just kind of like we do for the Bears. And then the Packers are interesting, man. Like I said, you got a guy that can really lock down on the edge. You got 2 really good edge rushers that haven't been prolific yet. But, I love Preston Smith. And so we'll see kind of how they get them going. But then you got Adrian Amos in the back end, too. And, again, a defense that hasn't quite 100% gelled yet, but is looking to be vastly improved. And so when you get teams that are like us and they're not confident on offense, they will be able to shut down. So that's kind of what we're looking at with the teams. Now, real quick, I'm going to get into the stats for you because everybody likes the stats, just to give an interesting perspective. So let's start off offensively. Total offense, which is yards. I think I did total yards. So, or it might be yards per game. But anyway, total offense. Lions are number 8 right now, and this is out of the league. Vikings are number 20. Packers 29, Bears 30. So already you can see that outside of the Lions, the division isn't doing too great on offense. Now when you go to total points, then it switches up a little bit. Vikings are at 12 in the league with total points. Lions are at 17 with total points. Packers 26, excuse me, and the Bears number 30, so 30 in both. So as you can see, Lions getting a lot of yards, not so much as many points. Vikings kind of vice versa, because you know that defense, especially in game one, put them in position to put up points. As far as passing yards, these are total yards. Lions are number 8 in the league again. Packers are 26. Bears is 28, and Vikings are 31. So very bottom of the league for most of our division as far as passing the ball, and that's Bears and A-Rod. And then Vikings are almost dead last. So running the ball, total yards rushing, Vikings are number 2. Lions are 16, Bears are 18, Packers are 19. So middle of the pack, except for the Vikings. Now hopping over to defense. Total defense, which is total yards allowed. Bears are number 4. Packers are 13. Vikings are 15. Lions are 27. And then we go to rush yards allowed. Bears are number 6. Vikings 15. Packers 19. Lions number 20. And then pass defense or pass yards allowed. Packers are 11. Bears are 12. Vikings 13. Lions 24. So looking at those stats, a couple things pop up. Lions, as I mentioned, statistically performing on offense, not so much performing on defense. And kind of what I spoke to, despite the good play against the Chargers, that's a unit that I think is going to rely more on the offense to put up points. Bears, kind of the opposite that, as we all know. Very low output on offense, but still top-notch output on defense. Run over pass, which we kind of saw against the Broncos, where we had some issues with the quick passing game. But run defense, we are still top 10, almost top 5. And then for the division overall, we just aren't passing well outside of the Lions. And offensively, just as a collective, we aren't doing great. And so with total points, scored, the Vikings, I think that's a little skewed because of the first game. Because I think really when you look at it, we're bottom half to lower quarter of the NFL when it comes to just putting up points. And so black and blue division, slug it out. That's kind of what we're looking ahead to. So it will be interesting to see how it plays out. Now it's only week 2. Of course, this doesn't mean, it's the end all be all. It's just kind of a glimpse of where we are right now. And so it will be interesting to see as we go forward. So we looking at the schedule, Green Bay has Denver this week. Looks like they'll be in Green Bay. It'll be interesting. I think they'll end up winning. I do think they have the tackles to handle Bradley Chubb and Von Miller better than we did, and we didn't have too much trouble with them. But you never know, that can happen. But I think A-Rod's going to be able to get away from that pressure. And Flacco shows some promise, but they're going to have to do more to keep pace with Aaron Rodgers. And I think that's going to put Flacco in passing situations, and they might win that. Vikings again, Oakland at home. That'll be an interesting one to see, Oakland. I don't think their defense is that great, and they're really injury riddled right now. So that's the one thing that could really throw the Vikings off, is making them not be able to move the ball. But I think they'll be able to move the ball against a hurt secondary with Thielen and Diggs. So I'll give them that home win. Detroit will be going to Philly. And Philly hasn't been the juggernaut that some people thought they would be. But I just don't see Detroit winning that on the road, to be honest with you. And then Bears are taking on Washington. I'll talk about the Bears later. So anyway, that is the division watch. Go to the comment section. Let me know what you think about any other teams, of your teams, or the division overall. Like, how are we going to be more competitive? Is it just going to be kind of one of those years? Let me know. Get the conversation started. Spread it around. Thumbs up, subscribe. And remember, stay up and bear down.